¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Thank you all for hanging out. I appreciate it. Derry Bennett, how was Labor Day? Labor Day was it was cool. We went out to do some trails and stuff like that. And or rather during Labor Day weekend, I should say, that's what we did. And Labor Day was spent playing catch up. Quad Bennett, welcome. Michael Hassler, welcome. Heat, welcome. Labor Day was the perfect opportunity to get some work done I'd been putting off, unfortunately. Yeah, that's what Sunday was. Sunday was like the big catch-up day. It wasn't all work, nearly finished the game a way out with my hubs. Nice. I've not heard of that game. Is it like a board game or is it like a video game? Kamikazion, welcome. Folks, it's a co-op video game. Oh, nice. Folks, if you enjoy the content, don't forget, folks, there's many different ways to help support the channel. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Thank you for your support. There are many different ways you can sub. You can sub to the channel. For those of you on YouTube, keep liking the stream, subscribe. Consider checking out the merch store. Thank you. And you can also tip your streamer using !tip. Thank you all for stopping by. Let's get started, folks. Let's get back into it. Oh, but before we do so, let me grab my soda water. 1 second. You know, it can't be a stream without the soda water, you know? It can't be a stream without the soda water. 1 second. Okay. We found the... This will be Zevia, not sparkling water. But, we work with what we got. Alright, folks, let's get started. Now we're truly ready, okay? Now we are truly ready to start the stream.
So we've gotten no clear indication from the Harris campaign that she'd break with Biden on the issue of Israel, although a lot of us were holding out hope, perhaps naively so, since, you know, she's been nominally better on this issue, at least rhetorically, but after hearing her DNC speech, and specifically what she said about Gaza, then after seeing her interview with Dana Bash and what she said there, explicitly saying she wouldn't condition aid to Israel, even pledging to follow international law at a minimum, which would signal that she would be open to conditioning aid to Israel. You know, needless to say, a lot of us found that really discouraging, to put it mildly. But apparently, there's still reason to be cautiously optimistic, emphasis on the cautious, or as I've previously said, cautiously skeptimistic. And I say this because all of a sudden, conspicuously,
I kind of like that. Cautiously skeptimistic. I think I'm going to have to start adopting that. Cautiously skeptimistic. Okay. I'll take that.
Anonymous sources close to Harris and her would-be national security advisor, Phil Gordon, have shared some things of interest to the press regarding this particular matter. And what they say is very, very interesting, to say the least. So in an article for the Washington Post, journalist Yasmin Abu Talib writes, quote, Gordon worried that the only way to accomplish Israel's goal of destroying Hamas entirely was to destroy Gaza along with it, with all the humanitarian tragedy that would entail, according to a person close to him who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. Gordon did not believe the United States could influence Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whom he had dealt with during Israeli-Palestinian peace talks a decade earlier, the person said. So let's pause for a moment to dissect this. An anonymous source close to Kamala's likely national security advisor is saying that he does not agree with the Biden administration's policy on Israel. Full stop. In his experience working with Netanyahu on previous peace talks, he knows firsthand that you cannot move that man. So this is a tacit admission to the press that he's not only aware of the fact that Biden's approach has failed, but he knew that it would fail ahead of time. Now, it would be better if we heard whether or not Harris herself believed this, but Gordon has been working in tandem with Harris on this issue and has a lot of influence. This is her most trusted foreign policy advisor. So for him to have this position and for it to be leaked to the press, that's no small thing. But here's where it gets really interesting. Abu Taleb continues, Harris would probably conduct a full analysis of U.S.-Israel policy to determine what is working and what is not, according to several people familiar with her thinking, with Gordon leading the effort. Okay. It is unclear what would come of that process, but those familiar with conversations between Harris and Gordon say she could be open to imposing conditions on some aid to Israel, a policy that President Joe Biden has largely rejected. Okay, so there's a lot here, but understand that there's so many caveats, right? Because they're saying she could be open to imposing some conditions to aid on Israel. So, they're not giving us a lot to work with. However, they're trying to communicate to us, they're trying to signal to us that she is aware that a policy change is needed. And it's not a lot, but it's still pretty significant, right? It indicates that she would be open to breaking with Biden. So despite what she's saying publicly, privately, those familiar with these conversations that she's having with her most trusted foreign policy advisor suggests that she would be open to conditioning aid to Israel, some aid, and she might be open, but nonetheless, it's on her mind. Now, the caveat is that the person familiar with these conversations that leaked this to the press could be reading too much into this, or they could be lying. This story could be planted in order to placate those of us calling for an arms embargo. Who knows? But for now,
Yeah, we'll see. It's honestly difficult to say, like, what exactly the Harris administration would look like, given her position, yeah, we just won't know until she's able to actually assume decision-making powers effectively. It ain't just talk, I think. Well, I mean, it's quite possible that's that really all it is. That's really all it is. It may be the case that's true, where once she gets, assuming that she wins the election, it just resumes as business as usual.
It's something to hang on to. But on top of that, there's the potential for a full analysis of U.S.-Israel policy that she would potentially conduct, led by Gordon.
These are the days. At Omni, save up to 15% when you stay tuned.
So,
and that's also presuming that she would select this guy as the advisor, right? The UK actually did stop doing some weapon sales. Yeah, they did. They've done more than we have. That's true. That's true. They've done more than we have.
Again, this is difficult to parse out because it could mean one of many things. First and foremost, it could mean nothing because the Biden administration assessed whether or not Israel was using American weapons in accordance with international law. And when they finally released the report after delaying it, they concluded that they were, which is a laughable thing to say. But nonetheless, they said that because if they stated that, actually they're doing war crimes, they're not using the weapons that we're giving them in accordance with international law, then U.S. law would mandate that Biden cut off the weapons to Israel. So he chose to lie for Israel. So it's possible that this is more of the same. But the verbiage here is very interesting to me. So we're not talking about an assessment of Israel's conduct specifically. We're talking about an evaluation of U.S. policy with regard to Israel, period. That's different. So what does that mean? Well, it gives her and Biden the chance to save face if she does go in a completely different direction as president, because up until this point, she's been towing the line and she doesn't want to seem like she's flip-flopping or
Right, and she can't really deviate that much. So basically it is a wait and see kind of deal.
doing a 180. But what this does is it gives her the chance to say, well, after we conducted this comprehensive review, we've determined that we need to go in a different direction. Or she could say, we've determined that Israel isn't using our weapons in compliance with international law after seeing new evidence from our review. So it gives her plausible deniability. This is all speculation, of course, but let's just say that you're not going to think that a comprehensive review of U.S. Israel policy is warranted if you think things are going well. So this is potentially big, but there's more. Despite her public support for Biden's position, her private comments and concerns as the war has unfolded suggest she would be open to challenging Israel more directly, according to people familiar with her views who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. Okay, so now we're starting to get somewhere. But the question is, what exactly do they mean by she wants to challenge Israel? Because that can basically mean anything. I mean, Biden would argue that he's challenged Netanyahu by telling him how concerned he is again and again and again. It doesn't do anything. So the question is, what exactly do they mean by challenge? And the anonymous sources who leaked this to the press don't actually say. But
yeah, and it doesn't matter like how concerned the administration pretends to be it doesn't matter how concerned the administration pretends to be if I keep seeing freaking dead children on my timeline.
But Ivo Dalder, the former NATO ambassador who's also worked closely with Gordon for decades, he went on the record in this article saying that Gordon would urge her to change U.S. policy. He said that explicitly because Gordon doesn't think the policy is effective. Therefore, he would say, Harris, you should change policy as her national security advisor or foreign policy advisor, as one of her most trusted confidants. He would encourage her to go in a different direction. So Dalder is giving us some additional context and corroborating what the sources close to Gordon are saying about him. Gordon doesn't think that the Biden administration's approach has worked. And this is somebody, again, who Harris trusts the most when it comes to foreign policy. So do with that information what you will. And I say that because
I mean, like, I hope that if that's the case and that's all true, and it is true that she would be more malleable, then, like, I would say it all depends on what kind of advisors actually end up being around her, assuming that she wins the presidency. Would this guy actually be her national security advisor, her foreign policy advisor? If so, that's somewhat of a step in the right direction.
As you know, there's a lot of ways to interpret this information. We could assume that Harris doesn't want to publicly break from Biden and wants to hold her cards close to her chest for a reason. You know, her own campaign, for whatever reason, chose to leak the story to signal to those of us that care about this issue that not all hope is lost. Or to put it more cynically, maybe they leaked this story in an attempt to
Yeah, to string to string us along, essentially.
placate voters in Michigan. Either way, this information would not be getting out to us unless the Harris campaign wanted us to hear it. So, again, take from that what you will. Now, on top of that, other high-profile Democrats are publicly speculating about whether or not she would break from Biden on Israel. One of them is Senator Gary Peters. Now, this is what he said at the DNC about Kamala Harris, and this is the senator from Michigan. So, his perspective might be different. Nonetheless, he believes that Harris does not agree with Biden himself.
You think it's important for her to show that distinction on her views toward Gaza with President Biden?
Yeah, if she has those views, she has to be clear about whatever those views are. She'll have to make.
Doesn't she?
Yeah, and I think she has differences,
Yeah.
and she'll talk about it.
Have you-
Back to authenticity. Be who you are.
Yeah.
Be what's in your gut. Tell us what motivates you, what drives you. People wanna see that.
Will you convey to her at some point in the next couple of weeks that she ought to do that?
Yes. Oh, if I have a chance to, yeah.
Now, again, maybe he's just saying that as the senator from Michigan because he knows her position on this is hurting her. But Ro Khanna spoke to NBC News, and he basically echoed the same sentiment when he was asked about this article from the Washington Post. But he also said something important about Netanyahu at the start that we'll listen to.
The hostage families themselves are saying that Netanyahu needs to actually be in the negotiation. Gallant, his own defense minister, has criticized Netanyahu in the cabinet for saying that the Fidelfi corridor, that Netanyahu is not willing to withdraw troops there as Egypt and the United States want. So I hope there's going to be pressure on Hamas and Netanyahu to end this war, release the hostages.
Let me ask you big picture about something. This is according to the Washington Post, which says that Vice President Harris would conduct a full review, if elected, of the U.S.-Israel policy and could be open to imposing conditions on some aid to Israel. I know that that's something that you have supported. Have you been pushing her directly to support conditioned aid to Israel?
I've been pushing her to support the enforcement of U.S. law. That is what the enforcement of the Leahy law and our security laws require, that we don't have unconditional aid. And, Kristen, this isn't unprecedented. In 1982, after the Sabra and Shatila massacres in Lebanon.
Is anybody else absolutely exhausted by all this? I'm not saying we should skip it. It's just really draining. Yeah, well, I completely agree. And yet, here we are. Fu Manchu, welcome. God, Kamala is such a disappointment. Yeah, well, could be worse, I guess.
Lebanon, President Reagan called up Menachem Begin in Israel and said, we will not give aid in a way that's going to cause humanitarian.
I just wish that she could be more open about what exactly she wants to do here. We should just get a straight answer. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get that. Not from her, not now.
In crises. So we need to have pressure on both sides to end the war, and I'm glad the vice president's open to a new direction.
Has she expressed openness, though, to conditioning aid to you directly in some of your conversations?
No, I will leave that for the vice president to articulate, but what she has, her team has expressed openness is to a new direction. And look, anyone looking at this policy, you have hostages who still aren't released. You have a war that has lasted almost 11 months. You have over 40,000 people in Gaza dying. We need a new direction.
Yeah, because of how? Why did all this happen? How did we come to this? No comment, chick. Welcome. She could easily get my full support instead of me just voting against Trump if she said I will not give arms and weapons of war to any country violating international law. Yeah, like, man, actually, that's a pretty good friggin' statement right there. That's literally that would be it right there. And it doesn't cost her a thing. It wouldn't cost her a thing if she would just say something like that. I think that that's a perfect way of wording it that she could just say. If a person seeking the presidency can't speak on an ongoing genocide being armed by this country, this is not a system worth existing. Fair. John Rando, welcome. America violates international law sometimes, though. Well, I would say a little more than sometimes. She doesn't even have to mention Israel, honestly. Yeah, but like we would all know, because we know that Israel is violating international law. Which is what Ro Khanna is implying.
A policy to bring the war to an end.
Keep in mind, Ro Khanna was a surrogate for Biden's campaign before he dropped out, and he is explicitly calling for a policy change, and he's publicly saying the same line that Harris's team is saying, or that they're leaking to the press, rather, that she is open to change in policy. How open she will be, what specifically that means, we don't know, but being open to a break with Biden is important. So they're putting this messaging out there for a reason. She doesn't want to campaign on this, but she wants us to have this information. The campaign wants us to have this information for a reason. But if you zoom out, part of it is that maybe they're doing this because Democrats have recently been presented with an off-ramp in the aftermath of events that are unfolding in Israel. And I say this because there's been massive protests in Israel after 6 more hostages died, and a lot of Israelis blame Netanyahu for that since he's refused to accept a deal, since his far-right coalition partners like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir have threatened to end their coalition if he agrees to a ceasefire. So Netanyahu has prolonged all of this to protect his own political career and potentially save himself from prosecution. And Israelis aren't ignorant to this fact. They know what—
Yeah, like this is all very clear as to why this is happening, right? I was trying to sugarcoat it. Yeah, I'm just super frustrated that I have to once again vote to save my trans friends from Trump. Yeah, here we are, right? This is the crossroads that we find ourselves in yet again. Although I suppose, like, the silver lining in all of this is that the likelihood, let's say Trump loses, the likelihood that we will have to deal with Trump becomes less and less, because there's no way that this guy is going to run in 2028. I seriously doubt it. Like, God forbid we get a candidate or a party that actually wants and tries to make our lives better. That would be too radical. Indeed. Indeed. Trump will be too old in 2028. All the anti-trans legislation has been state level while Obama and Biden were president.
What he's doing, which is why they're pissed off, which is why they're protesting. Families of hostages called for protests, and the largest labor union in Israel called for a general strike, and workers even walked off the job until a court ordered the general...
Yeah, but like Trump also wants to like make a lot of those state laws into a more national thing. I don't doubt he would try at all, whether or not Republicans actually reject that now. Actually reject the now 2-time loser is another story. Yeah, I don't know. I think he would be done. Like, man, 2028? I think he's too old. The bathroom bills were under Obama, then they went relatively quiet when Trump was president, and then went back to it when Biden got in.
General strike to end on Monday. But I mean, it just goes to show you how serious tensions are getting in Israel because of Netanyahu. And amid the ongoing protests in Israel, Biden admitted that Netanyahu hasn't been doing enough to get a deal. And that's really the understatement of the century, because as Jeremy Scahill explains, quote, Netanyahu has systematically sabotaged a Gaza ceasefire for 10 months, and the Biden-Harris administration has appeased and abetted him. Hamas accepted the ceasefire framework with U.S. amendments on July 2nd. Netanyahu then added new conditions, intensified Israeli attacks against Gaza, assassinated Hamas's top negotiator, and launched a bloody assault on the West Bank. The U.S. had the ability to stop this and systematically refused to do so. Instead, it shipped more weapons and continued to defend Israel's war crimes. These are the facts. So Biden saying that Netanyahu isn't doing enough sounds comical when you put it in context. Yeah, no shit, he's not doing enough. He's not doing enough because you're not compelling him to stop bombing children in Gaza, right? But the point is that the entire world has presented Biden with the golden opportunity to abandon Netanyahu. He can now condition aid to Israel or implement a full arms embargo. And he has an excuse now. He can say, I am doing this at the behest of the families of hostages who are outraged with Netanyahu. They want Netanyahu to accept a ceasefire, and he hasn't done that. So as president of the United States, I'm going to force...
Senator Ossoff blocked a judge a couple months ago because Senator Ossoff blocked a judge a couple months ago because she ruled the trans woman should go to women's prison and not men's prison. Whew. Yikes. Give me 1 week as dictator of the US and I can fix it. Well, I'll vote for you, okay? If Dems want to be the lesser evil, they could try at least a little. Yeah, that would be nice. Just a little, you know? Just a little bit.
Force him to do it. I'm going to withhold weapons since he has refused to stop what he's doing. But even entertaining the idea of Biden considering this for a second is a fucking joke because he's not going to do that. However, other more savvy Democrats like Ro Khanna and potentially Harris, based on this report, are seeing that this moment necessitates a policy change. The policy that Biden has instituted has been an unequivocal failure. So if you continue to go down this path, you are assuring that you will fail. Unconditionally supporting Netanyahu isn't good for anyone. It's not good for the United States, certainly not good for Gazans and Palestinians in the West Bank as well, and it's not good for Israelis as well. So this story right here about outrage from Netanyahu, that is Democrats getting a ticket to get the fuck off of this path, right? And the story from the Washington Post kind of feels like Harris dipping her toes in the water after hearing about how warm it might be. Will this lead to a substantive policy change, though, if she's elected? I don't know. I can't say for sure. But I do feel slightly more cautious.
The Senate's SCOTUS Electoral College, it's not a very democratic system. That's true. Dems are totalitarian. They're not democratic. Well, I don't know if the Democratic Party is totalitarian. I would say that's not accurate. The Dems are a lot of things. Well, the party as an institution is a lot of things, but totalitarian doesn't really fit.
Skeptimistic now than I did after hearing her interview with Dana Bash. You can say that that's hopium or copium or that I'm wish casting, but it's undeniably something to hang on to. It's not much, right? But it's a little bit. And I think that's important. I think that a 5% chance of a policy change is better than a 0% chance of a policy change. And I say that because Trump...
Right, and Biden wasn't going to do anything about this either.
Would not change policy. He's not going to listen to what we have to say. This is a man that literally uses Palestinian as a slur. And he just tweeted this disgustingly racist image of Arabs burning an American flag that says, meet your new neighbors.
Yeah, I saw this one.
Kamala wins. So, I mean, that's the kind of bullshit we have to look forward to if he wins. But even if it's not possible to move Harris on this issue, and all of this is just a ruse, and the story was planted to placate us, it doesn't matter. Because either way, she'll have to be pushed regardless on this issue and every other issue. And that's true if Trump wins, it's true if she wins. Regardless, we're going to have to fight whoever is in power. That's the reality of American politics, right? And I think it's obvious that Harris is the better adversary, especially in light of this new information. That's the adversary that you want to fight in the White House. As Ole says, we're choosing our weakest opponent. And so the fact that she's signaling to us that she is open, maybe, possibly, to a policy change, I think that's really important. And yeah, you can do with that information what you will. For a third time, I've said that. But I mean, again, a lot of...
I agree with humanists. Yeah. Like, we're not here because the Democratic Party is a bastion of, is a champion of progressive values, right? It's It's more like, well, Republicans are an overtly fascist movement, and the Democrats have found themselves in a place where they seemingly have absolutely no answer, none whatsoever, none whatsoever to fascist, to the rise of the fascists, and they are not willing to do very much. No one's feet are ever held to the fire. Yeah. Do they respond at all to the people they seem to dictate? They did, though. They do. They respond to their constituents more than the Republican Party. That's for sure. The Dem platform got significantly worse from 2020 to 2024. You think so? Like the 2020 platform campaign versus now?
A lot of this is subject to interpretation and speculation, and we're dealing with limited facts here, so it's conjecture. But needless to say, as somebody who cares deeply about this issue, I think that her campaign leaking this story to the press, probably deliberately, that's important. So I'll leave that there.
It's so hawkish on Iran and little mention of all of climate change. That is a good point. I did notice that. I did notice that they basically completely memory hold the idea, the mention of the climate crisis. Carpet Packs, welcome. Dems haven't had a platform beyond not being Republicans in over 16 years. I don't want to be I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good, but can we have higher standards for our leadership, not just Republican light? Agree. Bernie showed up with a platform and they shut him out. Yep. Which means they shut us out. Because corporations and their political donations still rule the world. Yep. Which is why I remain bitter. The People's Choice was not allowed. What part of Kamala's platform is meaningfully different from early 2000s era or Republican? That is a good point. The only difference is the rhetoric, essentially. The only difference is the rhetoric. Or I guess the delivery system. Sorry, I hit the ad button. I'll wait for the ad to stop. Hear any good songs recently, ADT? Not any new songs. Not any new songs. I don't see an ad. You're good. Okay, perfect. All right. So as I was saying, the difference is just really the method of delivery. But yeah, I think Fu Man, I think you're right. In terms of like substance, as far as like platform goes, yeah, it's not it's not much different. Until we have a revolution of thinking, people and the environment that they live in are more important than rich MFers filling their pockets, nothing will fundamentally change. Yeah, that's true. By the way, I'll post more stuff. I'll post more songs on the Discord later on. I suppose like the big the big question is like how does that happen, Cognizant? How does that happen? Because like it's not like people don't know. It's not like people aren't capable of understanding that the problem is the system that we fundamentally have at the moment, not just here but on a more global scale, is essentially destroying everything. This guy's channel is a mental therapy for me. This is actually pretty freaking cool. Nice.
Well, a lot of people are calling it modern slavery. Does that feel right?
I was just about to say, that's slavery. That's slavery. You took away the whips, but you put the paperwork. Took away the masters and you put them in uniform. Same difference, same difference.
It kind of appears that there is a coordinated system in order to protect the labor that's created by the prison system.
Walk into a McDonald's in Alabama, and the worker flipping your McDouble could be an incarcerated person.
It's a sad situation, a way they getting rich off us.
The Alabama Department of Corrections farms out incarcerated people to work at hundreds of private companies and government agencies across the state.
Like that concept right there is just like, it's just absurd. Like that one or two sentences that like, oh yeah, like the Department of Corrections just kind of like, you know, loans out incarcerated people for private corporations to use. Like, This is mind-blowing. Can't be legal. Oh, it's very legal. That's the problem. It's very legal. Prison labor is bad enough, but this is next effing level. Yep, the 13th Amendment. Exactly correct. I'm sure it's all voluntary. Yeah. Voluntary.
McDonald's, Burger King, Golden Corral, Wendy's. They got a Wendy's contract right now. State Trooper's office.
They'll send everybody everywhere.
They'll send you everywhere. Yes, the parole office.
And even though ADOC trusts these incarcerated people to leave prison every day and work alongside the general public, many of them are still denied the chance at real freedom.
I work for y'all, but when I come up for parole, you deny me. Why would you deny me? Because I got free. Because you're getting free service.
Right. That's like the ultimate capitalist dream right there. Does Alabama also support child labor? Probably. Didn't we go over like certain states loosening child labor laws? I'm pretty sure Alabama was one of them. If they actually paid a regular wage, it might be okay, but geez, bet the Department of Correction gets a cut for transportation. Yeah, like they literally get contracts for this. The Department of Corrections is making money. They're the ones that are contracting out. Oh, it was Arkansas? Gotcha. They're the ones that are you know, doing these contracts. Arkansas, maybe West Virginia, that tracks. Psychopathic things like slavery are relentless and have found their way. Yeah, it never truly went away. Not really. It just kind of changed a little bit, right? Instead of like outright, like outward slavery, we have this entire system where state and private work together to lease out human beings for little to no labor costs, to pump out products, to work in their fast food places, etc.
This is a story about corporations and the state of Alabama exploiting
I think South Dakota, there's kids under 10 working in meat plants overnight. That tracks for the Dakotas.
prison labor. And the
specifically South Dakota. Wait. Yeah, that tracks for the Dakotas anyways.
coercive policies they use to keep its citizens trapped in servitude.
It doesn't work. It's a terrible system.
If you're wondering how any of this is even legal, well, it might not be. That's what we went to Alabama to figure out.
Oh, shoot. Hold on, man. Maybe Kamikaze might have actually been onto something. But I guess what this is video... I talked too soon.
So yeah, could you...
So yeah, describe to me the legal loopholes that these people decided to make so that this is happening. To this day, they keep eroding New Deal laws, civil rights laws, and pretty much every law that keeps workers from being slaves. Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, right?
Just describe like how long you worked here and...
I was here 18 months. I ran their kitchen by myself from 8 to 5 every Tuesday through Thursday.
Wow, yeah. That sounds like hard work.
It was.
Elizabeth Thomas was in the Alabama Work Release Program for 5 of her 15 years in prison.
So they had a combination of incarcerated people and free world people?
Yes. Yes.
Did you feel like there was a difference how they treated?
Oh, most definitely. We worked longer hours.
Make the work release work over, or work extra days, don't want to give you off days. Like, no, I got to eat my health. I have to get rest. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a machine. But that's how they look at you, like.
This is Quincy Sanders. During his nearly 17 years in prison, he worked at several restaurants, a lumber yard, and McDonald's.
Like, working a real job and trying to be incarcerated is a very hard experience. You have to be mind strong, really.
Alabama has one of the most overcrowded and deadly prison systems in the United States. Even the Justice Department found conditions there to be unconstitutional. In 2023, almost a person a day died in Alabama prisons, which is almost 5 times the national average.
It's wild. This is what happens when money becomes free speech. The poor get silenced. Supreme Court said bribery was totally okay too, adding another nail in the coffin. Child labor alive and well.
Or they might get beat to death. People beating folks with sticks. They breaking broomsticks, making little billy clubs. People in there stabbing each other. People in there doing drugs. People in there almost about to die. They're not giving you no nursing assistance. The nurse probably get there, you probably be dead.
But ADOC offers people in prison with nonviolent misdemeanor convictions a potentially life-saving deal. If they join the work release program, they get to live in special facilities that are generally much less dangerous than regular prisons. They spend their days working in the free world without prison supervision, and they can earn 72-hour passes to visit their families at home.
If you go out here and you do the right thing, you get to elevate, you get to grow, you get out of this facility. But what you didn't tell me is that you finna get all my money. That's what they didn't tell you.
The state takes a 40% cut of every incarcerated worker's wages off the top, before taxes.
That's wild. A 40% cut on top?
Plus an additional $5 a day for van rides to and from work, $15 a month for laundry, and then any restitution and court fees.
If your check is $636, you might see two something out of that.
That's wild.
That's every 2 weeks. And you done work 80 hours and only seen $200. Like it makes you lose motivation, because money motivates people, especially working, so it kind of makes you lose motivation.
One estimate calculated that the state of Alabama enjoys a benefit of more than $450 million a year off of prison labor.
And it's slavery, all the way around the board, just slavery.
And unlike free world workers, incarcerated workers can't just get a shift covered or quit.
ADOC has a list of rules that all incarcerated people are expected to abide by. Rules like don't have contraband, be in your bunk at the required time, and rules like don't refuse to work. That's a rule on the books.
CJ Sandley is one of the attorneys behind a recent lawsuit filed against ADOC.
The range of punishments folks can face if they get written up for refusing to work include solitary confinement, losing access to phones.
Okay, gotcha. So like the fact that so loaning out prison work is okay. The problem is the conditions. That's why I'm voting third party Claudia de la Cruz and nothing down ballot. Missed one. That's okay. I got him.
Tablets, visitation, access to their families and loved ones for like 30 days, 60 days. Being required to do more work inside the prison walls for free, under threat of punishment.
I want to talk to my family. I want to be a part of my family, and you're telling me that if I don't go and do what you want me to do at these jobs, work as hard as they want me to do, if they need me 7 days, you want me to go there 7 days. If they need me 80 hours, you want me to work 80 hours. If they want me to turn around and come back and do a double, you want me to get up and you want me to be available to do all this. But if I decide I'm tired, Lord forbid if we got sick.
I talked to Reginald Burrell, who was injured when an entertainment center fell on his head at the private furniture manufacturing company where he worked through ADOC. When he spoke up about it, he was fired.
And I confronted the JPO about it, and they shipped me to Childersburg, with extra duty, taking away my privileges, and I ended up in a landfill. I just got assaulted and mistreated at this job, and now I'm ended in a landfill working for free for a multi-million-dollar company.
One of the most valuable things in the system is whatever I can do to get out early. If a work stoppage to protect myself from being abused and to speak up for myself could subject me to sanctions,
wild.
I don't have to say it, but you're going to follow whatever order you're given.
Chris England is a state representative in Alabama. He's leading the fight to reform the state's prison system.
It is a completely broken system. The folks in charge, the parole board, they don't use guidelines. There is no methodology applied to it.
Alabama has some of the lowest parole grant rates in the country.
And more than 90% of the time, hearing this answer.
Denied, 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 be denied. Parole will be denied.
If the parole board followed its own guidelines, it would grant parole in about 80% of cases. But instead, that number dropped to just 8% last year. And incarcerated people in the work release program don't fare much better.
I know that there are people at the Department of Corrections, they assess them, and then they say, you are not a threat. So much so that you can leave here and go work. Some people actually go home for 72 hours on a weekend and are told, we trust you to the point where you do whatever you gotta do. We'll see you Monday morning, 8 o'clock. That same person goes before the parole board and they say, you know, what you did 20 years ago is so bad we can't let you out. You're a threat to public safety, but make sure you're at work tomorrow morning.
A federal lawsuit claims that 235 people in the work release program were denied parole.
That's freaking wild. Of course he was. It's called Human Resources for an effing reason. If your current resource breaks, you just replace it.
In fiscal year 2022.
So if the system is operating as designed, what is the point of the system?
Exactly this. Exactly this. To provide free or cheap labor to corporations. And if you never let any of them out on parole, unlimited resources, easy peasy.
It appears labor is.
One thing our lawsuit talks a lot about is that very clear lineage from slavery in the state to convict leasing and to what we've got now. And the punishment by the Department of Corrections is what our clients are challenging, because that's what amounts to involuntary servitude and slavery by the state.
After the Civil War, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery with a key caveat. Forced labor was still allowed for people convicted of a crime. And the states adopted a copycat of this federal amendment. But here's the thing. In 2022, Alabamians made a historic vote to remove this exception.
The state has a new constitution. Voters overwhelmingly agreed to make our state constitution free of racist laws and language.
However, right after the voters of the state changed the state constitution, the governor and the Department of Corrections really doubled down on the punishment for refusing to work.
So the people closed the loophole and then the governor went around to open it up again, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
That's so messed up.
Right.
Governor Kay Ivey's executive order made encouraging or causing a work stoppage a high-level violation on the same level as possession of a weapon, drug possession, and bribery.
Jesus.
The order also cracked down on correctional incentive time, better known as
good time.
In some prison systems, good behavior is rewarded with what's known as good time. People can earn sentence reductions and get released from prison early.
And the state legislature even changed its good time law to increase that form of punishment for folks who refuse to work.
We're simply changing the amount of correctional incentive time or good time days that are offered.
Are we increasing or are we lowering it?
We are lowering them.
All of this was done on the heels of this constitutional change, and frankly, it's a brazen ignoring of the will of the voters of the state. And that's what our lawsuit is about. And so many people want to work, but they want to be paid fairly. They want to be paid a free world wage for the labor they're doing. They want to be working in safe conditions. They want to be treated fairly. And they don't want to be forced to work if they don't want to, or they can't because they're sick, or they have a doctor's appointment, or they're feeling unsafe in their work and they want to change.
Like literally everybody else.
Change jobs.
One of the unique things about this state, and really the country, is that things just never end. They evolve. If your prison system is full, it's primarily full of black folks, black men, and you have a racial disparity in who gets released and who doesn't. Can you imagine the optics of what that labor force looks like?
Black people account for just over a quarter of Alabama's total population, but more than 50% of the prison population. An AL.com investigation found that black men were 25% less likely to get parole than white men.
If you could take a picture of a group of men who are working convict labor decades ago and juxtapose that next to a current labor force, it would probably look the same. That's crazy.
So, what is the point of prison? Is it the creation of a cheap, controllable, and confined labor source? Or is it rehabilitation? And what does a real commitment to rehabilitation for incarcerated?
Yeah, it's not about rehabilitation. We don't have a rehabilitative justice system at all. Felons are people too. Yep.
People actually look like.
I wish they'd strip that name off of that Alabama Department of Correction. I wish they'll take correction out of that and just say Alabama Department, because ain't no correction. Ain't no correction, ain't no structure, ain't no discipline. You discipline me to do what you want me to do, not the law. Not to come back in society and be able to live off of what you taught me. That's not what's going on. If I lived off what DOC taught me, I'd still be a criminal. Because they want that paycheck. They want me to come back in tomorrow. They want me to. Because they money keep flowing. It's no correction.
Right, because that's not the point. That's not the point. Yeah, merge it with the Department of Labor obviously saves a bundle.
We need to start correcting. We need to start loving. We need to start teaching.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they're not interested in any of that whatsoever. They're interested in that cash flow. In that cheap to free labor.
Last week, J.D. Vance was in Boston where he gave a speech to the International Association of Firefighters, one of the largest firefighter union groups here in the United States. And it could not have gone worse for him. And the thing I love the most about it is that the crowd didn't even wait for Vance to actually start speaking before they just tried to boo him off the stage. So we've got a bunch of clips here. Let me show you this first one. This is what happened when J.D. Vance first walked on to the stage. Take a look.
Thank you so much. Well, Semper Fi, guys. We got some, it sounds like we got some fans and some haters. That's okay. Listen to what I have to say here, and I'll make my pitch. I want to first say thank you to Representative Jimenez for the great introduction. It's very kind of you. Thank you for your service.
Now, I'm going to do something very weird right here. And I am actually going to give J.D. Vance a lot of credit. Not credit for walking into hostile territory. Absolutely not. That doesn't count. What I am giving him credit for is that I actually think that he handled that situation at that very moment very well, right? I mean, listen to what he said. He said, sounds like we've got some fans and some haters. That's okay. Listen to what I have to say and I'll make my pitch. That was actually a really good statement. And again, I will give credit where credit is due. If that had happened to Donald Trump, he would have gone ballistic. I mean, a lot of politicians.
I would have paid money for that one. Okay, I would have paid money for that one.
Mostly on the right, would have gone ballistic. J.D. Vance, I will say, handled that moment like a champ. But there's only so much people can take, right? If he thought he was just going to walk out to some cheers and some boos, which is what it was, there were people cheering, you know, and then maybe calm them down and then have a good speech, he was completely wrong. So let's check in and see how the middle of his speech went, right? Did it get any better as he started talking?
No, probably not.
Well, take a look.
They tried to kick Trump off your ballot. They even tried to end his campaign and take him out for good. But President
Christ. Get this loser off my freaking YouTube video. I don't golf. Why are you serving me golf ads? I don't. Donald Trump golfs, okay? Not me.
I are proud to be the most pro-worker Republican ticket in history. And I want to talk about why we're fighting for working people, why we're going to fight for unions and non-union alike.
Yeah. That's how it should always be handled. For both kicking him off the ballot and shooting him, they were Republicans. Exactly. The guy, the would-be assassin was a Republican.
Now Okay, so at this point, now he's starting to get a little flustered. Now things aren't going so smoothly. Now he's starting to get a little
Yeah, because like imagine going up to like a crowd of union people and have the audacity as a Republican to say that you are the party of working people. Like, yeah, dude, you're gonna get freaking booed off stage, man. That's such a silly statement to say to a union.
Lloyd trying to hammer home these points about how horrible these darn old immigrants are, and the crowd doesn't want to hear it. They're sick and tired of this same sales pitch from the Republican Party for the last 3 elections.
That's a lot of BS to be shoveling indoors. That's a safety hazard.
Immigration, earlier this year, at one point, was in fact the top issue for most voters. It's now fallen down to just 13% of voters say it's the top issue. Because Republicans did their whole Icarus thing, where they got a little greedy, they flew a little too close to the sun, made this too much of an issue, telling people how bad immigration is and you can't walk across the street without getting assaulted by an immigrant. And at that point, when they got too extreme with it, most of the public looked around and they said, well, wait a minute. I'm not swamped by immigrants here.
Actually, that's a pretty good point. I think sometimes they forget not everyone actually buys their BS. Yeah, like they forget that like the real world exists, and it's not just their bubble. That's a good point.
I just went to the grocery store and wasn't shocked. Like, what they're telling me is not actually true, apparently. And the voters started to slowly wake up to the issue, realizing that it actually is not as bad as the Republicans are trying to make it out to be.
Never was, by the way.
And so that crowd is a reflection of that.
There was a lot of like massaging of the truth, to even like will that nonsensical talking point into existence so far as the Republican base goes.
Their response is a reflection of that. J.D. Vance is supposed to be talking about, I don't know, anything. And instead, he's just talking about how much he and Donald Trump don't like people who aren't natural-born citizens. So, didn't go over that well. And then there was another funny part where he tried to cast himself and Donald Trump as the normal people. You know, we're the party of everyday average Americans. He said this. Let me read this to you. He goes, it says a lot.
Let me stop you right there. The party of everyday normal people, my brethren in Christ, your nominee is a literal oligarch, dude. Your nominee is a literal oligarch. Because and JD Vance is like a venture capitalist, isn't he? Yeah. The party of everyday people. Got it. A venture capitalist and a oligarch. Got it. Because Arkansas swimming in undocumented immigrants. Yeah, known border state, Arkansas.
Each party chose to put up on that stage. At the Republican convention, we were featuring everyday American workers. And of course, we had Hulk Hogan. And while it's tempting, and I'm sure it would make some big headlines, don't worry, everybody. I'm not going to try to take off my shirt here.
Yeah.
He told a joke about doing a Hulk Hogan, and nobody made a sound.
Yeah, because I wouldn't, like, if this dude started to try to rip his shirt up, I would be very uncomfortable. Immigration is one of the top issues when people are polled regardless of state. You know, why do people think that, though? Like, why do people... Because, like... It's all based on, like, heavily massaged facts to will this immigration narrative into existence to the extent that it is. The party of the people they personally every day is more like it. Yeah. Frankly, the party of the people they personally every day is more like it. Frankly, I think it's much as the Dems' fault as the Republicans. Both parties are talking about how big it's a problem. About how it's a big problem. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a fair point. What's not real about the immigration crisis? Basically, like, all of it. Like, the idea that, like, we're swarming in, like, brown people that are committing crimes everywhere, and, like, you know, whole cities being taken over by the brown people. And they're now taking over your jobs, and they're raping everybody, and they're killing everybody, and it's just not like the fact that, like, there's like literal, like, 1 gazillion jillion brown people coming over the border. Like, dude, everything about it is manufactured to the extent that is to the extent that it exists. And they're not like serious about addressing like anything regarding immigration to the extent that it exists. Because like the moment you start talking about like, oh, hey, if you're actually interested in like working on this on immigration, like what about making deals with Venezuela and the rest of the countries in South America, Brazil, El Salvador, Nicaragua, like all these Central and South American countries. We need to provide resources to them. We need to provide support to them, and it's going to cost. It's going to cost, and we need to do that in order for us to actually help these countries, and B, fundamentally, that's the problem. These countries have been destroyed. Greatly in part because of what we did decades ago, and people are desperately fleeing here because of that. So yeah, it's incumbent upon us if we want to provide resources and dedicate the effort to actually solving this. But no Republican is going to be on board with that. None. No Republican has talked about actually providing real solutions. So it's a farce. The way they've willed this fantastical narrative of the immigration crisis is it's just not real.
Not a single not a laugh, not a chuckle, not even a boo. He's sitting there like, oh, I mean, we had Hulk Hogan at our convention, and he's like stuttering and stammering. He's like, if everybody, I'm not gonna take my shirt off, but I mean, he was like half a second away from pulling a Jeb Bush, like,
please clap,
please clap. Not a word. So his one joke that he had, that I am sure he rehearsed behind the scenes, like ad nauseum, just totally fell flat. Did not resonate with that crowd at all, so he just kind of looked pathetic. But let me go ahead and tear apart that point as well. He claims, we had average everyday American workers. No, you didn't. You didn't. You had people like Carrie Lake. You had people like Matt Gaetz, who scared the hell out of everybody with his creepy Botox that he got that day. You did have Hulk Hogan. You had Kid Rock. You had J.D. Vance, which is you, of course. You're not going to mention that. You had a failed reality TV star, convicted felon, as your nominee. Y'all are not average people. J.D. Vance is actually trying to sell a billionaire that had a golden toilet as an average person to a group of real, average, everyday heroes.
Right.
Okay? Those firefighters are not just your average, everyday, workaday folks.
Yeah, man, it just blows my mind how people think that someone like Donald Trump has the interest of the working class in mind. That just blows my mind how that is a real thing that these Trump supporters believe. That somehow it just doesn't make sense, because I can't really rationalize it other than it's just propaganda that people have bought. There's no logic to it. It's all feels. But they've bought this concept that a billionaire who has been raised with a golden, forget the silver spoon. This guy has been raised with a golden spoon his entire life. And that's somehow a dude that's going to champion the working class? That dude has the working class's interest? They think Trump is a devout Christian, for God's sake. That's true. Man, it just blows my mind. This is the kind of stuff that needs to be studied. This is the kind of stuff that needs to be studied later down the road, because, man, I don't know if we should actually consider him a billionaire the same way we wouldn't consider Monty Launder a trillionaire. I suppose. I mean, he might be a billionaire. He just might not be as rich as people think. Or maybe he's not. I don't know. It's hard to tell with this guy, to be quite frank. You may bring up a good point there. But we'll say he's really rich, or was, or is. I'm not quite sure, but he certainly wants you to believe so. In any case, someone like that, who is very wealthy, and who no doubt is an oligarch, somehow that dude's going to be a champion of the working class. That's what they like about him. He's a F up. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It blows my mind each time.
They are heroes. And I trust me, I'm speaking from personal experience with firefighters, and I'm talking personal experience within the last week and a half. My house caught on fire. It was pretty nasty. It was terrifying. And I got to see firefighters up close in person, just barging into the home to put the fire out, barging into the, lot next door that was completely ablaze. These are brave individuals, but they're also real people. They have nothing in common with a man who sits upon a golden toilet.
Mm-hmm.
And for J.D. Vance to try to cast him and Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's also just like very obviously phony, right? He's in a possession of $1 billion in commercial real estate, but it doesn't mean he's a billionaire.
In the same light as those people is nothing short of insulting. So anyway, like I said, we got more though. How did it end? Did the crowd ever get better for J.D. Vance? Well,
nope.
You be the judge. Here it is.
We're going to fight for you whether we get it or not. God bless you guys, and thank you.
Boo. Boo.
So no. Whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end, the crowd didn't like it. But maybe, you're saying, Farron, maybe this is just not a political crowd, right? Maybe they just didn't want to hear any politics at all. Do we have something else to compare it to? I mean, did Tim Walz show up and give a speech and everybody loved it to actually show that they do prefer Democrats over Republicans? Well, I'm glad I asked myself that question on your behalf, because yes, that is exactly what happened. The day before J.D. Vance gave his speech to the group, Minnesota Governor and Kamala Harris's running mate Tim Walz also gave a speech to the group. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz pointed out that to the IAFF the day before, during a much friendlier reception, that Trump had blocked overtime benefits, opposed efforts to raise the minimum wage, and proposed slashing federal fire service budgets. Walz warned that under Project 2025, Trump would continue to weaken unions. So Tim Walz spoke. He got a warm reception. He wasn't greeted with boos. There's no video clips floating around of him making jokes that nobody laughed at, so it's not that the crowd's not political, it's just that they didn't like what J.D. Vance had to say. Hi, everyone. This here is...
That's too funny. That is too funny. Yeah, they're applauding his exit. Exactly. Let's check out what Tim, the very, very, very centrist podcaster, has to say regarding Project 2025.
Should Democrats be in jail? No question. When Donald Trump gets elected, should he start locking them up? No question. Should there be lists of Democrats that need to go to jail? 100%.
Man, we're 8 seconds in, man. Whew, Tim Pool. 8 seconds in, and we're already like, and we're already advocating for the imprisonment of our political enemies for no other reason other than they're our political enemies. And you might say, oh, well, obviously we wouldn't want criminals to go away scot-free. Yeah, except what crimes are we talking about? Who are we talking about? Which Democrats? Are you talking about like Bob Menendez? Because he's going to jail. He's going to jail. If he's found guilty. He was found guilty. He's going to jail. So what Democrats are you talking about? And for what crimes, Tim? I'm sure he's going to elaborate. Beanie Turd alert. Now hold on, Cognizant. As a fellow beanie wearer myself, we don't claim him, okay? We just call him Bad Beanie Man, okay?
The reason for that is they've committed crimes.
What crimes? We're 10 seconds in. What crimes, Tim?
We need to make sure that when Donald Trump wins, we've got an attorney general, a
centrist, by the way,
deputy attorney general, a head of the CIA and the FBI. Kash Patel would be fantastic. We can have
the crime of disagreeing with me or annoying with me. Yeah, doesn't matter. If you're not with me, then I guess jail. Easy Beanie Turd. You will not convince me otherwise. 5 bars of gold pressed platinum.
Attorney general. There's some names floating around, and then they can start having their investigators and the feds issuing subpoenas, pulling up evidence, and
Who, Tim? What crimes? Who is committing these crimes?
With real evidence, bring them to judges for warrants.
You are a beanie lord, thank you. Trump will not go to jail or house arrest due to problems with Secret Service.
Then these people can spend
a difficult truth beanie. A difficult beanie.
Three years of their lives fighting tooth and nail for the crime against the government for crimes they committed and we can prove. Yeah. And the reason why we put them on trial is that we can show the whole world we will uncover what you've done.
What crimes? Who, Tim?
We will make sure everyone knows, and you will be held.
And the caveat's coming up, folks. The spicy part is coming up in the last 9 seconds. Okay, so at some point in the last 9 seconds.
Held accountable for it.
Not just jail, they should get the death penalty. You know, we actually used to have the punishment for treason in this country.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, like, yeah, basically, the conversation being had here is essentially like, yeah, I think we should just, like, get rid of our political opponents. We should just get rid of our political opponents. And Laura Loomer comes in, saying, yeah, I mean, we used to hang people for treason. Has anyone here, has any Democratic person being currently accused of treason? No, it's something that basically what they deem treason is things I don't like because they are the opposite party. That's what it is. And because of this clip, of course, I'm not gonna link that there. Bad Beanie Man over here has decided that he's going to take some kind of legal action for using a clip of his own words. Yeah. Apparently, Tim is going to attempt to seek legal action for the campaign, the Harris campaign, using a clip of his own words, because yeah, you know what? He is a Trump operative. Okay, he has publicly said that he supports Trump, and he does, not just in action. Sorry, not just in words, but in action. He's literally hosting Laura Loomer in this episode. And by the way, as the tweet points out, they have scrubbed the video from YouTube. Why? Because she was calling for freaking violence, man. What's interesting is the angle appears to be because they're doing it to Trump. Exactly. That's it. That's it. That's really what it is. Because he specifically mentions, as you point out, oh, they can worry about it for 3 years, as Trump has. So no real crime that they're actually interested in investigating or that they're aware of. None of that. They just want to do the same thing to their political opponents, when in reality what's happening to Trump is all of his own doing. As you mentioned, Trump is the criminal. Trump is the real criminal, and there's a reason why he's going through all these investigations and trials. Not Bad Beanie Man. Tim Pool is just a BM. So yeah, the reason why this is scrubbed was because of Laura Loomer's comments. And now he wants to to take legal. I love this freaking thumbnail, man. Really, dude? Hold on. There we go. Bro, come on. Come on, man. Just to be clear, us Beanie and Took people do not claim this person, okay? We do not claim Tim Pool. And his use of a beanie is strictly out of our control, okay? You ever see the clip of someone snatching his beanie off his head? He freaks out. He's so physically not intimidating. That's what makes this whole thing even funnier. That's what makes this thumbnail even funnier. It's just like when the racists tried to claim the Pepe cartoon, not happening. Yeah, we don't claim this guy, okay? He doesn't speak for all Took and beanie wearers, okay? All right, folks, we got to talk about a couple of headlines. J.D. Vance endorsed anti-IVF report that contradicts Trump's new stance. A right-wing think tank report proposing sweeping restrictions on abortion and fertility treatments was endorsed by J.D. Vance years before he became a fervent backer of Donald Trump and eventually his vice presidential running mate, known for his derisive views on childless women. I love this. This is such a perfect descriptor. Like, I actually love this. In 2017, months into the Trump presidency, Vance wrote the foreword to the Index of Culture and Opportunity. Yeah. Oof. That's, Index of Culture and Opportunity. A collection of essays by conservative authors for the Heritage Foundation that included ideas for encouraging women to have children earlier. And promoting a resurgence of traditional family structure. Whew. Yikes. The essays lauded the increase in state laws restricting abortion rights and included arguments that the practice should become unthinkable in the U.S., a hardline posture that the Democrats now say is the agenda of Trump and Vance, who they accuse of harboring the intent to impose a national ban following a 2022 Supreme Court ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade and annulling the federal right to abort a pregnancy. The report also includes an essay lamenting the spread of IVF and other fertility treatments, party of family values, by the way. With the this makes no sense. Like, you want people to have children, you're forcing people to have children, and you are trying to mess with a potential procedure that helps people have children. It's just whatever. We're not going to actually provide any support for these young mothers, though. Maternal leave, healthcare, get back to work. Right? Yeah. No, nothing past the nothing past like the fetus. That's it. Like, the only thing we care about is pretending that we have some kind of moral superiority. But once the child is born, good luck. with the author attributing them as reasons for women delaying having children and prioritizing higher education and starting families. Amazing. Amazing. IVF has emerged as an issue in November's presidential race after Trump said that he favored it being covered by government funding or private health insurance companies, a stance seeming at odds with many Republicans, including Vance, who was one of 47 GOP senators to vote against a bill in June intended to expand access to the treatment. The report's contents provide fresh insights into the philosophy informing some of Vance's inflammatory later public statements, which have included saying that America is run by, quote, childless cat ladies, and that he is disturbed by the idea of teachers who do not have children, question mark. He also suggested that people without children are likely to become more sociopathic. Oh, man, oof. Let me tell you. With conservatives, every accusation is just a confession, huh? The 2017 report, released a year after the publication of Vance's best-selling memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, and also after he made a series of statements denouncing Trump, whom U.S. Senator called cultural heroin, and speculated could become America's Hitler. He also described himself as a never-Trump guy. Number one issue is the economy, and people say Trump would do better on the economy by 8 points over Kamala Harris. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what survey that is, but I don't think that's as much the case anymore as people think. How else are you going to fill prisons with desperate poor people for new slave labor if you don't force women to have children? Correct. However, its forward contains hints that Vance's thoughts on then-president were already evolving. Quote, we all seem to be waking up to the fact that things aren't quite as they used to be. When President Trump has spoken to the country as trapped in a losing game of international trade or decried the carnage on so many American streets, he has earned criticism for painting an overly pessimistic view of his own country, yet that pessimism struck a chord with many Americans. The question for those concerned about the future of the country is not whether negativity is justified, but why negativity inspired so many at the polls. Vance's view ultimately went full circle, and Trump endorsed his successful election campaign for the U.S. Senate in 2022. The foreword to the 2017 report also seems to be one of Vance's first known links to the Heritage Foundation, a think tank responsible for producing Project 2025, a controversial and radical blueprint for remaking U.S. government, specifically the executive, and society in a conservative image. Trump has disowned the 922-page document, but the campaign of Kamala Harris and the Democratic presidential nominee has depicted it as an assault on basic freedoms and typical of what lies in store under second Trump presidency. Yeah, no doubt. The reason why Trump would do better on the economy is because, this makes no sense. I can tell you don't know what you're talking about. The reason why Trump would do better on the economy is because when Trump was president, prices for all products were low, and now under Biden and Harris, this is such a child's view of how things work. It's actually fascinating. This is like a child's view as to how things operate in the real world. I mean, open and shut. When Kamala Harris proposed a policy. When Kamala Harris proposed a policy that would cap prices and prevent price gauging by corporations, Republicans called it a freaking communist plot. Okay, so please spare me. This is embarrassing. Correlation does not imply causation. Well, I hope they understand. I doubt they understand that. The Heritage Foundation is not a think tank. It's a bill mill with very little thinking involved. I don't know. I think they've been playing the long game for quite a while. But you're right. It is a bill mill. That's exactly the point. Yeah. Jack Smith asked judge on January 6th case to address immunity as Trump seeks dismissal. Project 2025 is the GOP's first omnibus bill. Yeah, well, it's if Project 2025, even if even if part of it starts becoming reality, that's a pretty bleak outlook. In the event that Trump would win the presidency and somehow attempts to make this a thing, even if some of Project 2025 gets done, the damage will be pretty bad. The thing is 900 plus pages. Well, you are embarrassing because you don't understand the economy, and your source here is a leftist source that is partisan, biased, and false. You are partisan and biased. True. I am very biased, but I'm biased because I understand how things work, and that's not really an answer to the counterpoint that I launched. Like, the economy and prices has nothing to do with what President Trump did versus what President Biden is doing, and has more to do with corporate greed and a supply chain issue that has compounded. We're talking about a lot of different moving parts, but as simple as I can put it is corporations are price gouging, and they're taking advantage of the supply chain issue that happened and that has compounded things that have caused domino effects to lead us to where we are. And you could tell that Trump actually doesn't care or has any policy to address any of these issues because he hasn't put anything forward as to address how you would even stop price gouging. Versus when Kamala Harris attempted to propose something like maybe corporations shouldn't be allowed to price gauge, you people decried it as communism. So you can just sit this one down. You can just sit this one out, okay? Price gouging is like voter fraud. It isn't. Price gouging is not like voter fraud because voter fraud isn't existing to the point where like it's actually making a difference. Are you calling ABC News a leftist source and simultaneously calling ADT embarrassing? Incredible. Listen, folks. No, they were talking about The Guardian. They were talking about The Guardian. Price gouging is actually happening, whereas voter fraud is like a hugely like complete like conspiracy because like it's not a thing. Sorry, voter fraud having any change in the election is just like it's just not happening. It never happened. There have been roughly 1,200 confirmed cases of voter fraud since 2002. Amazing. No, it wasn't ABC, folks. It was The Guardian. The answer to that, by the way, is okay. If you believe that the source is biased and wrong, then why don't you just say how it's wrong? You don't understand how things work like the economy. You just don't know what you're talking about. Did you know that Jason Furman, the former head of Obama National Harris's economic... yeah, cool. Anyways, you're just saying a whole lot of nothing. That's the issue. You're saying a whole lot of nothing. This has nothing to do with anything. Anyways. Lawyers for Donald Trump and special counsel Jack Smith disagreed on how to proceed with the former president's election interference case. Both sides said in a joint filing late Friday, on the heels of this week's superseding indictment in which Smith adjusted the case's original charges to respect the Supreme Court's recent ruling on presidential immunity. Smith, in Friday's filing, declined to propose a timeline for the case, telling the court that decisions on how to manage its docket are firmly within its discretion, while Trump's lawyers proposed delaying any in-person proceeding until after the November election. Right, which is the goal, right? Because he wants to win. Not saying anything. I'm telling you the truth. You just want to live in a bubble and only look at leftist sources that are always incorrect. Okay, if a leftist source like The Guardian is incorrect, then why can't you tell me how it's incorrect? This makes no sense. You keep saying that The Guardian is a leftist source. Okay, it's biased. Okay, how? What's the problem? What's the problem? The Guardian in general is lib at best, most leftist source that's actually trusted is Democracy Now! And even then, they aren't that far left. Yeah, like, again, if you believe... Yeah, like, the whole point I was trying to make is if you believe... if you believe that... if you believe that there's a problem with the source, then you address the problem with the source. Like, you can't just keep saying, that, like, there's issues with the source. Okay, well, tell me what the problem is. Oh, no, it's just a biased source. Okay, all sources are going to be biased, dude. That's how this works. All freaking sources are going to be biased. Kamala would be far better off after price gauging in industries that don't have a measly 1.4% profit margin like groceries. Where do you think the price gouging is happening? This makes zero sense. This makes zero sense. I mean, maybe in their convoluted mind, that entire essay might have made sense, but it doesn't, because like price gouging is happening, and you don't prosecute this price gouging the same way you would prosecute voter fraud, because voter fraud is like a felony? ? This makes no sense. And voter fraud, like, statistically speaking, is irrelevant. Okay, to the extent that it exists, it is so infinitesimal, and the right has made such a big deal about this that it just doesn't make any sense. Comparing price gouging to voter fraud as well, not only are they entirely different things, to attack the rates of what gets prosecuted for each is even dumber. Prosecutors don't bring cases to court that aren't confident of winning, and they won't get prosecuted the same. The evidentiary standards of each are wildly different. Yeah, this is like, it just makes no sense. It just makes zero sense. And to the other absurd troll, trying to say like, well, people think that the economy is like the top issue, and like the economy was better under Trump, ? And the economy is bad under Biden ? And like, so yeah, this makes no sense. On the heel of this week's superseding indictment, on which Smith adjusted the case's original charges to respect the Supreme Court's recent ruling on presidential immunity, Smith, in Friday's filing, declined to propose a timeline for the case, telling the court that decisions on how to manage its docket are firmly within its discretion, while Trump's lawyers proposed delaying any in-person proceeding until after the election. Trump last August pleaded not guilty to federal charges of undertaking a criminal scheme to overturn the results of the 2020 election to remain in power. Last month, in a blockbuster decision, the Supreme Court ruled that Trump is entitled to immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts taken under oath acts undertaken while in office. Look at the Twitch viewers pretending to be idiots. I don't think those two were pretending. They're probably just trolls. I think I've seen Evil Right Winger before, I'm gonna be honest. Wait a minute. Yeah, banned from Lumi. I'm pretty sure I had a hand in this one. I'm pretty sure it was either me or another mod kicked him out of the majority report, because I'm like, I remember this username. I don't miss, folks. I don't miss. I don't miss. I remember everything. Okay? I remember everything and I am everywhere. Okay? So if I remember your username, it's for a reason. Yeah, banned from Lumi, the reddest of red flags. Lumi, the most chillest and most wholesome streamer. I knew I recognized that username from somewhere. Smith in Friday's joint filing urged U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, ignoring that he probably got dinged by PasadaBot that you guys all use. No, I'm a mod for the majority report. I remember usernames, and I remember him specifically. There's a reason why that happened. Trust me, there's a reason why that happened. And I'm pretty sure there's a reason why they were banned from Lumi as well. I'll refresh my memory as to what happened and why they got kicked from the majority report, because I'm pretty sure I remember. If I didn't time them out, I had a hand in banning this user, Evil Right Winger, because they ring a bell and it's not good. If your username rings a bell, it's never a good thing. If your username rings a bell, it's not a good thing. Smith in Friday's joint filing urged U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan to address the Supreme Court's immunity decision first and foremost, while Trump's lawyer asked the court to immediately consider dismissing the case based on the legality of Smith's appointment before turning to the immunity issue. The parties recognize that types of motions and briefings anticipated pre-trial proceedings would have differing views on how the court should schedule these matters and the manner in which they are to be conducted. Rather than propose an in-person evidentiary hearings, which would have resulted in a so-called mini-trial ahead of the election, Smith urged the court to accept written briefs about presidential immunity to distinguish Trump's private electioneering activity from official action. If Trump's team files a motion on other issues, Smith asked the court to consider those issues simultaneously with the immunity issue. Such a schedule could quickly address the question of presidential immunity and position the case to process to trial, though Trump is likely to appeal his immunity claim if Chutkan rules against him. The government is prepared to file its opening immunity brief promptly at any time the court deems appropriate. Trump's lawyers asked Chutkan to first consider whether Smith's appointment as special counsel and funding are constitutional, the issue that led a Florida judge to dismiss the former president's classified documents last month before considering whether to dismiss the indictment based on presidential immunity. Also, asterisk, the person, that judge is the judge that Trump appointed them, Trump appointed. So, yeah, that's cool. What's sad is ADT's viewers need these articles read to them. True, that's why they're here. That's true. Before considering whether to dismiss the indictment based on presidential immunity, defense lawyers proposed holding a hearing about Smith's appointment in December, followed by non-evidentiary hearing about immunity in late January. We believe and expect to demonstrate that this case must end as a matter of law. Defense lawyers also signaled that they plan to argue the indictment should be dismissed because of grand jury heard evidence related to then Vice President Mike Pence's role in the 2020 certification process, which they believe is subject to presidential immunity. If the court determines, as it should, that the special counsel cannot rebut the presumption that these acts are immune, binding law requires that the entire indictment be dismissed because the grand jury considered immunized evidence. If you guys don't ban me for spewing out all my rancid and immoral right-wing propaganda, you can't be all bad. Exactly. Yeah, and also make sure, and also you guys are here only because I read articles out loud. Chutkin had no discussion whatsoever, no relevance to maybe the folks who just like to listen, nothing like that. It's just yeah. Such a smart remark, J-Mac. You know, I'm so glad that YouTube that you've made such an intelligent observation. Man. We have other ways of dealing with you. Man, chat has been the trolls have been rowdy today. Jesus. Chutkin and earlier scheduled a September 5th status conference to chart a path forward for the long delayed case, which has not seen an in-person proceeding since last year. See, the mods are ganging up on me. The January 6th developments are just part of the flurry of legal activity Trump faces in the final months before the election in November. On Monday, prosecutors in the special counsel's office appealed U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon's decision to dismiss the charges in Trump's classified document case. Trump is also scheduled to be sentenced in New York on September 18th after he was found guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records. The former president has mounted multiple efforts to delay the sentencing, including last-minute attempt to remove the case to federal court. At the potential sentencing, Trump faces the prospect of immediate and unlawful incarceration of under New York law, which could prevent him from continuing to pursue his leading campaign for the presidency, Trump's lawyers wrote in a filing on Thursday. Man, that sounds like that sounds like a you problem, man. Oh my God. I wasn't comparing price gouging to voter fraud as comparable events. I was remarking on the way that people ignore either is happening, except that voter fraud, to the extent that it matters, is irrelevant, versus price gouging is very relevant and very and affecting people in a real and meaningful way. Like, it's just so ridiculous and absurd that you would even make this comparison. And the dude took 5 minutes fuming while the rest of us moved on. The content makes itself. It's just so absurd. Like, what does this have to do with anything? Like, oh, well, you know, people will ignore that either is happening. Okay, voter fraud, to the extent that is happening, you know, like the one case, okay? The handful of cases that you find that will never, ever be statistically relevant versus like price gouging, that's something that's like legitimately happening that affects people here and now. It's just so absurd. This has nothing to do with one another. It's not comparable at all. Trump's claims of millions and millions of illegal votes is nonsense, man. It isn't happening. You've been conned. It still doesn't get it. That's why you're a effing 10 viewer and Andy grifting on Twitch. True. There it is. Man, that was so easy. So easy. That's so easy. Thank you. Oh my God. Just to be clear, I love all 10 of you, okay? I love all 10 of you. Oh man. I'm sorry, what'd you say? It's okay. You know, eventually, like, it'll happen. Eventually it'll happen. Eventually. We love you too. Thank you. Thank you. Oh man, these trolls today. Just wait till we get a raid. I'm good with raids, just not raids of trolls. Remember back in the day? With the hate raids, when the hate raids were a thing? I still have like an emergency button on my little device here. That kind of was reminiscent from back in the day for those hate raids. Anyways, man, the trolls. Not good. Not great. That was horrifying. Yep. Before my time. We've got one more, because I gotta get going after this one, so I think this one's important. Oregon ban on hard to trace ghost guns go into effect Sunday. This was courtesy of the Discord. Thank you. So-called ghost guns, privately made firearms that don't have any serial numbers and largely untraceable, will be banned across Oregon starting Sunday after a federal judge denied a legal challenge or tried to block the prohibition. Ghost guns, different from weapons manufactured by licensed companies in that the latter are generally required to have serial numbers, usually displayed on the frame of the gun, that allows officials to trace them back to the manufacturer, the dealer, and the original purchaser. The U.S. Department of Justice reported recovering 25,785 ghost guns in domestic seizures in 2022. An Oregon case, Stephen Duvernay, a lawyer from the Oregon Firearms Federation and the Firearms Policy Coalition, argued in federal court that this month that self-made guns without serial numbers are common in the U.S. That's not good. That's true. Why else would Loomer call demonstrators? I'm pretty sure it was from Echo Resto. Yeah, Echo Resto Dragon. Yes. Yes, I believe you're right. I believe you're right. Yes. Indeed. It's freaky. I knew a guy in Portland with one of these guns. It was Echo Resto Dragon. Yes, it was. Yeah, like, why? It just makes no sense. Not good. Devaney also said requiring his clients to add serial numbers to their guns or gun parts would be impractical. Adding a serial number would be impractical. Adding that about 1 million people own such weapons in state and would be affected by the new law. That's a red flag. You have to resort to ghost guns because serial numbers are so long they don't fit on the gun anymore. In 2023, Oregon legislator passed House Bill 2005 banning ghost guns. State Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum, a Democrat, had pushed for the legislation for years, according to Oregon Public Broadcasting. Unserialized guns are bad for everyone except criminals who don't want to get caught. When the ban takes effect, firearms made after October 22nd of 1968 must have serial number, and violating the law could result in a $1,000 fine. Repeat offenders could have higher fines and potential incarceration. Under the law, people with firearms that currently do not have serial numbers could have serial numbers put on them by federally licensed gun dealers so they comply with the statute. Since July of 2023, Oregon has also barred the sale, transfer, and import of unserialized firearms and the possession of, sale, and manufacturing of firearms that cannot be detected by metal detectors or X-ray machines. Responsible gun ownership means respecting the gun laws of our state, and that now includes a ban on unserialized and undetectable ghost guns, said Rosenblum, who's not running for re-election. For the safety of your families and communities, please make sure you understand our new law and that you are in compliance. Oregon joins at least a dozen states, including California, Washington, and Nevada, in regulating ghost guns. Yeah, I mean, this is probably not a not really like a hard ask to make sure that like these guns, these firearms, are at the very least serialized. Good, but not nearly enough. Yeah. Exactly. We live in what's basically a shooting range in America now. Also, if you go get your gun serialized, instant entry on the federal watch list. Yeah, because why would you want an why would you be in possession of an unserialized firearm to begin with? Because that's a bit sketchy. All right, folks. Well, it's time for me to go. I got to get going. It's almost 7:30. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Well, if you're law-abiding citizens, you shouldn't mind. Right. Like, it's just sketchy. It's just sketchy to begin with, right? So, yeah, it would make sense if the federal government would find you a little bit more interesting if you had a unserialized gun that you went to go serialize. In any case, I'm heading out, folks. Thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kamikaze, and I appreciate it. As always, folks, you guys are what makes the channel grow. Thank you all. Make sure you hit the follow button on your way out. Keep liking the stream. I see you guys on YouTube. Keep dropping that like, subscribe, do the awesome stuff. Join the Discord, folks. Join the Discord. We had an awesome movie night this weekend, so that was awesome. Thank you to the folks that stopped by. I appreciate it. This last Saturday, coming up in, 4 weeks? 4 weeks from now will be September 28th. So that's going to be another movie night, folks. Movie night was great. I think so. I think so. Great movie, great friends. Yes, exactly. It sucks that we coddle the ones that should be in prison. Yep. Yep. Yeah, please leave your suggestions in the Discord. Join the Discord, folks. Join the Discord. Folks, if you want to support the channel, there are many different ways. Consider checking out the merch store and hitting !tip so that you can tip your streamer directly. I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Thank you, Heat, for minding the chat. We'll be back tomorrow as always, folks. Please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. Yeah, join the Discord, folks. All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.